When the agents left, the apartment turned into a war room. "Ben Miller!" Jack shouted when he heard the name. "Bippo! Bippo Miller!" "Who is Bippo?" Chrissy asked. "He was in my squad in the Navy," Jack said, pacing the room so fast he nearly tripped over the coffee table. "We played poker. A lot of poker. And Bippo ended up owing me $100. He worked in the personnel office, and he offered to settle the debt by moving my discharge date up a week. I got out early, Janet. I'm AWOL. I'm a deserter." The panic was infectious. Jack saw his future. A grey cell in Leavenworth, making big rocks into little ones. He saw himself on the run, a man without a country, wearing a disguise for the rest of his life. "I have to hide," Jack said, his eyes wide. "They're coming back. If they catch me, I'm dead. They'll court-martial me. They'll take away my whisk." When the FBI returned that evening, they found Janet and Chrissy alone. "Where is Mr. Tripper?" Roth asked, his eyes narrowing. "He's away," Janet said, "on a long-term catering contract in Greenland. We saw a man matching his description entering the building 10 minutes ago," Banning said, stepping into the living room. From the kitchen, a woman emerged. She was wearing a floral dress that was slightly too tight across the shoulders, a blonde wig that sat precariously on her head, and heels that made her walk like a baby giraffe on ice. "Hello, boys," the woman said in a high, breathy voice. "I'm Jacqueline, Jack's sister, from the South." "Jacqueline," Roth said, looking at the sister's 5 o'clock shadow. "You have a very sturdy jawline." "It runs in the family," Jack as Jacqueline chirped. "Our mother was a lumberjack." The charade lasted for 20 agonizing minutes. Jack flitted about the room, offering the agents tea and trying not to let his wig fall into the sugar bowl. But when Janet's actual date for the evening, a New York executive named Walter Nessel, arrived, the chaos reached critical mass. Walter, seeing a beautiful blonde, Jack, and a room full of FBI agents, assumed he had walked into a high-stakes sting operation. "I knew it," Walter shouted, putting his hands up. "The taxes! I'll pay the back taxes. Just don't shoot the girl." In the confusion, Jack's wig was knocked off by a rogue elbow. "Mr. Tripper," Agent Roth said, sighing as he looked at the man in the floral dress. "We don't care about your discharge date." Jack froze. "You don't?" "No," Banning said. "Benjamin Bippo Miller is applying for a high-level security clearance with the government. He gave you as a character reference. We just needed to know if he was a man of good moral standing." Jack looked down at his dress, then back at the FBI. "And what did you decide?" Roth looked at Jack's heels. Chapter 5. The heart of the matter. The agents left, and the apartment fell silent. Walter Nessel had fled, convinced that Santa Monica was a den of federal agents and cross-dressing chefs. Jack stood in the center of the room, slowly unzipping the floral dress. Janet and Chrissy watched him, a mixture of amusement and genuine affection in their eyes. "You know, Jack," Chrissy said, stepping forward to help him with the zipper, "you actually have very nice legs." "Don't start," Jack grumbled, though a small smile played on his lips. "He's right, though," Janet said, leaning against the counter. "You'd do anything for us, wouldn't you? Even if it means making a fool of yourself in front of the FBI. "I'd do anything to keep this," Jack said softly, gesturing to the room. "To keep us. It's not a normal life, I know. A guy living with 2 girls, pretending to be someone he's not just to pay the rent. It's crazy." "It's our kind of crazy," Janet said. "And besides," Chrissy added, "who else would make us Bavarian cream pie at 3 in the morning?" Jack looked at them, the sensible florist and the dreamer secretary. He realized then that the lie he told Furley wasn't the most important part of their lives. The truth was in the way they protected each other, the way they laughed at the disasters, and the way they always found their way back to the same dinner table. "Come on," Jack said, tossing the wig onto the sofa. "The kitchen is still a mess, and I think I still have some champagne from that Romanian dinner. Let's have a toast." "To what?" Janet asked. "To the company we keep," Jack said. As the bubbles hissed in their glasses and the Santa Monica night settled into a peaceful quiet, Jack Tripper realized he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He was a chef, a roommate, a protector, and occasionally a Jacqueline. But mostly, he was home. Chapter 6. The secret ingredient is trouble. Morning light in Santa Monica had a way of forgiving the previous night's sins, but it couldn't fix a broken oven. Jack stared at the ancient appliance in their kitchen. It had emitted a final, tragic wheeze before surrendering to the void. For a chef, a broken oven was like a painter losing his brushes. Or in Furley's case, a landlord losing his favorite velvet ascot. "It's dead, Janet," Jack said, poking a burner with a wooden spoon. "Totally, completely, culinarily deceased." Janet looked up from the flower arrangement she was working on. "Can we fix it?" "Only if we have a time machine and a contact in a 1950s appliance factory. We need a new one. But new ovens cost money. And our rent fund just went to buying Furley's goodwill and a watch for me." "There's the Chef of the West competition," Chrissy said, popping into the kitchen with a newspaper. "Look, first prize is a state-of-the-art kitchen suite, or $500 cash." Jack's eyes lit up. $500? That's not just an oven. That's an oven, a stand mixer, and enough copper pans to make me look like a professional. But as he read the fine print, his face fell. The final round is televised, local cable, Channel 12, and the guest judge is Ralph Furley? "Furley?" Janet gasped. "Why Furley?" "Apparently, his brother Bart is one of the sponsors. Furley is filling in as a representative of the common palate. Well, like a man who knows his way around a butcher knife and a flambe torch, he might start asking questions about those good vibrations I'm supposedly sending out." "We need a disguise," Chrissy suggested. "No more dresses." "Chrissy," Jack groaned. "I still have a rash from that polyester floral print." "What if you're not Jack?" Janet said, her mind working through the logic. "What if you're the masked chef? You wear a tall toque, some big glasses, and a fake mustache. You speak in a thick accent. Not Romanian, maybe. Swiss." "Swiss," Jack considered. "Neutral, precise. I can do Swiss." The competition day arrived. The local community center was packed. Furley sat on the judges' panel, wearing a suit that could only be described as electric lime. He looked incredibly self-important, occasionally tapping a gavel that no one had given him. Jack, under the alias Hans the Humble, stood behind his station. He wore a mustache that felt like a dying squirrel, was taped to his upper lip. "And our first contestant," the announcer boomed. "Hans from Zurich." Jack gave a stiff, military bow. "Guten Tag. I make the schnitzel with the secret sauce." Furley squinted. "Hans, eh? You look familiar. Have we met? Did you rent a studio from me in 72? "9, Jack barked, his voice 3 octaves lower than usual. "I am only here for the cooking. No renting. Only the gravy." As the clock ticked down, disaster struck. The mustache, loosened by the steam of the simmering sauce, began to peel at the corners. Jack felt it flapping like a tiny wing. He tried to blow it back into place, but only succeeded in making a whistling sound that confused the audience. "Hans," Furley said, leaning forward. "Your lip, it appears to be escaping." In a moment of pure panic, Jack grabbed a head of lettuce and held it in front of his face while he flipped a crepe. "It is the Swiss custom," Jack shouted, "to hide the face from the spirits of the burnt butter." Against all odds, the dish was a triumph. The secret sauce, a delicate reduction of white wine, shallots, and a pinch of fear, was the best thing Furley had ever tasted. "It's magnificent!" Furley cried, wiping his mouth with a lime-green handkerchief. "Hans, you've won. Come here and give your landlord, your judge, a hug." Jack backed away, still clutching the lettuce. "I must go. They cows, they need me, in they Alps." He sprinted out of the community center, prize check in hand, leaving a very confused Ralph Furley holding a wilted piece of romaine. Chapter 7. The midnight balcony. That night, the new oven sat in the kitchen, gleaming and smelling of factory-fresh metal. Chrissy had already gone to bed, exhausted from the stress of watching Jack nearly lose his mustache on live television. But Jack and Janet remained on the balcony, the cool Pacific breeze ruffling their hair.